Welcome to the Wired for Success podcast, your show for ambitious, mission-driven entrepreneurs who want to build million-dollar businesses without sacrificing their health, relationships, or happiness, who understand that in order to build their empire, they need a solid foundation, and that the more they are thriving, the more their business is thriving too. This show brings you the very best from science, self-development, and entrepreneurship to set you up for sustainable success. Hi, I'm Claudia Garbutt, the scientist turned mindset and high performance coach for entrepreneurs, and I help you get wired for success. Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Wired for Success podcast, where we talk about all things science, self-development, and entrepreneurship that help you get to that next level of success in your life and business. And today I'm excited to bring you a brand new interview episode. My guest today is founder, author, podcast host, Fortune 500 consultant, and Chief Burnout Officer of the Breakfast Leadership Network, Michael Levitt. I've personally experienced burnout, and I know that this is a quiet pandemic amongst ambitious, mission-driven entrepreneurs that we all need to talk more about because it ruins people's lives and livelihoods. And that's why I've invited Michael, and I'm thrilled that he could join us for this episode today. So welcome, Michael, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Thank you for having me today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
So am I. So, Michael, the first thing I would love to know is what personal experience made you decide to fight against burnout? Why is this so important to you?
Yeah, I had my own burnout journey a little over 13 years ago, back in 2007. I was hired as a healthcare executive for a startup medical clinic just outside of Windsor, Ontario, Canada, across the border from Detroit, Michigan. That's an important detail, and I'll get to that in a moment. But in this role, and if anybody, entrepreneurs, of course, know what startups are like, they launch their business, they put in a lot of hours and a lot of resources and whatnot. I was an employee of this organization, but and I say this now, mistakenly treated it as if it was my own company. And I put in some amazingly long hours. So basically from 2007 to 2009, I was typically working from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. 7 days a week for a couple of years. And that took a toll on me. I was not eating well. I wasn't resting well. I wasn't doing things that were beneficial to me. Self-care, which a lot of people hear that, they think maybe, am I talking about meditation or yoga or things like that? No, I'm actually talking about just doing things in life you enjoy doing. I cut those things out because I was working so much and I was fatigued and wiped out. And it all came to a crashing halt in 2009, where over a period of 369 days from May 2009 to May 2010, the following happened to me. I had a heart attack that should have killed me. And then 17 weeks later, that job that I had, they let me go. And this was during the Great Recession in the US and Canada. And Windsor is across the border from Detroit. And that was a heavy automotive sector. And the government had to bail out a couple of the auto companies because they were about ready to go out of business, which would have had a gigantic ripple effect across the globe, and especially in the US. So here I am recovering from a heart attack. 17 weeks later, now I'm unemployed during a recession. So it took me a long time to find a new role, and I ended up finding a new role in Toronto, and it required relocation and all of that. And I moved up to Toronto, and my family was still down in the Windsor area, and I was commuting and back home on the weekends. And we did this for about 6 weeks. And then we finally found a place to rent up in Toronto. But during that time of the commuting, I got a phone call from my oldest daughter, who was 10 years old at the time, and she was crying and couldn't understand a thing she was saying. And finally, I got from her that the bank had come and repossessed our family vehicle. The reason why was when you're on unemployment, your income is a lot lower, and you have difficulties paying mortgage and your bills and whatnot. Plus, I was on heart medication now that cost me over $1,000 a month. And I didn't have any insurance coverage because I was unemployed. So when you need to eat and you need to feed your family and you have this new drug bill of $1,000 a month, you have to make choices. And unfortunately, we were unable to pay our bills for a period of time. We worked with our creditors. We told them what was going on, and they were very graceful for a period of time. But during the Great Recession, a lot of people were going through similar challenges of being unable to pay their bills and whatnot. So that grace period ran out, and the bank exercised the right to take the car, which they did. And then finally, we moved up to Toronto and we unpacked everything. And then we realized that we forgot our daughter's bunk bed ladder, which was left at our house. I was going back to that area the following weekend to visit with some friends and tidy up a couple of things to close out some accounts and whatnot. And I said, well, I'll just swing by the house, which we were getting ready to list for sale. And I went and had the visit, and I went to the house and I opened up the front screen door, and I saw the largest padlock I've ever seen in my life. And there was a bracket sealing the door and a small sticker on the door that said foreclosure. So in a year, heart attack, job loss, car repossession, home foreclosure, all those things happen. Those horrible situations all happened to me in a year. And all of those things happened because I was burned out. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't getting rest. I wasn't eating. I was making mistakes at work. And it all came to a crashing halt. And after recovering from that, I realized that I had a second opportunity at life. And before I continue, I want to warn people, and entrepreneurs especially, if you are burning out, and we're going to go over the signs of burnout and all of that in a moment. But if you're burning out, 99% of you do not need to reinvent your life. You have to make a couple adjustments here and there. It'll make a big difference. In my situation, the way that I was living was definitely not sustainable. So I did choose to reinvent myself. And it took time, but I did. And life is much better now. And after going through that exercise and going back into healthcare and doing the work, I started recognizing my colleagues were doing the same things that I did. And it scared me. I'm thinking, okay, this burnout thing, I need to research it a little bit more. And then I opened up that Pandora's box and realized that it was a much bigger problem. And this was in 2014, in early 2015, that I started recognizing this is not something to be overlooked. This is a problem. And I started doing a lot of work, writing articles, and talking with people about it. And then it came to me that, you know what, I may have an opportunity here from a consulting standpoint to, launch a consulting business while I'm still, working and see where it goes. And that, took off. And then, of course, this pandemic has amplified the need for burnout resources and guidance to people so they can avoid burnout. So that's how I got into the field. It started off with my own burnout experience, which was extreme to say the least. And then ultimately it birthed my organization and all the work that I get to do.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. That must have been tough for sure. And I've had my own experience with burnout. And it seems like once you get to that low, there are so many things that just keep piling up on top of that. So for me, it was the same thing. I was burning out, and then I got diagnosed with leukemia, and then I couldn't continue the work on my PhD project, and it was just so many things, one after the other. And sometimes it feels like life wants you to stop and listen and understand and learn a lesson, and it won't stop giving you crap until you hit pause and listen to it. Now, if you could have a giant billboard anywhere, what message would you put on it, and who would you want it to see?
The message would be, if there's a lot of ways to help stop burnout, but I think the key thing that I see time and time again is I would have that billboard say, invest in the best possible sleep you can. Don't buy the latest smartphone. Don't buy the largest television. Invest in the best sleep that you can get, because time and time again, sleep is what's causing a lot of problems. Because when we sleep and we get good sleep, that's when our body repairs the damage that we do to ourselves on a daily basis. You can have the healthiest of lifestyles, have next to no body fat, eat the best foods for you and all of that, but we still have stress in our lives, from work stress, life stress, pandemic stress, concerns about the economy, concerns about, war, all the things that a pandemic. There's all of these things that have been piling on for people and have been overwhelming to so many. And that impacts your ability to sleep because you're tossing and turning because your body's trying to work through that stress. And if you have ways in your life to deal with the stress better and give yourself a fighting chance, then you're going to get better sleep. And if you get better sleep, then that impacts your cognitive ability, pattern awareness, ideas. As an entrepreneur, you're always looking for ways to grow your business or find new revenue streams or find new customers or learn ways how to connect with customers in this ever changing world. And if you're wiped out, you're fatigued, you're tired, those ideas are not going to come to you. When you're relaxed, and everyone should probably nod their head when they hear this. When you're relaxed and you feel good and you're having a great day and you're just sitting and reflecting, that's when the idea machine turns on. All of a sudden, you start getting some insights on, you know what, maybe instead of offering this to my clients, maybe they'd be interested in this. And next thing you know, you've just come up with a 5 or 6 figure business model for your business. If you weren't relaxed, that idea may not come to you, or it might, but it may be further down the road. So focus on your sleep. You get
Mhm.
good sleep, that's going to have a ripple effect that's very positive for everything else that you do.
Yeah, I definitely second that because sleep is so, so important. So, in your experience, what are the top three stresses that lead people to experience burnout? What makes the top of the list?
I would say, just being overwhelmed and overcommitting is definitely a big issue, especially with work. And even right now with the great resignation and, in the US, every month, there's at least 4 million Americans that are quitting their jobs. Now, they're not all staying home playing on their Xbox or PlayStation. No, they're going to new companies, but still that is extremely disruptive for everybody, from the organization that just lost you as an employee. They have to go through the process of hiring new people, interviewing, and all of that. And your teammates or former teammates have to do some of your work while that role is vacant. So that overwhelms them. So organizations, unfortunately, in many cases, are overwhelming their employees with giving them too much work and not enough time. And that is a huge, huge problem because as an employee, the majority of us, I mean, there might be a few people, but the majority of us really want to do a good job. We want to complete our work. We want to do well in the things that we do. We want to be interested and have input in the work that we do. And if you're in an environment where that's not happening, that's stressful. And that stress piles up over time, and prolonged stress is what turns into burnout. Another sign that I see a lot is just, again, going back to sleep. If you're not getting good sleep, that's going to have a ripple effect on your ability to deal with stress and your digestive system and cognitive awareness and relationships and the ability to listen and hear things clearly. That's another sign. And then, yeah, I think one of the biggest things too is, and it goes back to communication. When organizations do a great job of constantly communicating with their employees, not in a micromanaging way, but in a way where people are aware of, what we're doing, what's the next stage, and there's a mechanism for clear communication across all the channels within a company, those organizations are doing a better job of retaining their people as well as keeping stress reduced. And there's a focus on that. We're seeing a lot of companies now more from the, okay, we're going to have a ping pong table or a pool table in the break room, to fancy coffee machines, which was usually a perk that you used to recruit all the great people. Now there's more of a focus on, okay, we need to install healthy habits in our organization, whether it's boosting up benefits programs to pay for gym memberships or having healthier foods delivered or provided in the break room, or just the enticement of taking longer breaks. Or even, I know in the UK they're doing they just launched a trial for the 4-day work week.
Mhm.
And it's not 4 days 10-hour days, it's 4 days 8-hour days, and the pay is not being reduced. And they're looking
Awesome.
at then they're looking at it, and the studies and the ones that have been done in the past, what they've determined is productivity either stays the same or increases when people are working less hours. And the reason why is I think it's the Parkinson's law. I could be completely wrong on that, but I always forget what it is. But it's basically work expands to fill up time.
Exactly.
If you've got less time, that's going to get your focus juice turned up, and you're not going to be stressed. You're going to say, okay, I need to focus on getting this done because I'm working 4 days this week and it needs to be done this week, and I'm not working Friday. So I've got to get to it. And it affects everybody because instead of the, okay, let's have the 20-minute conversation, and there's nothing wrong with checking in and talking with your colleagues. We're human. We're supposed to do that. But it also keeps in check things, and it also, what I've seen is it improves communication because people realize, okay, we can't wait a week for the information on this. What's going on? So it's making people more intentional about the work that they're doing and more focused on it, which is increasing productivity. And I'm looking forward to see how the results go on because and again, I'm personally biased on this, and I'm originally from Detroit, so I get in trouble for saying this, but we need to say goodbye to Henry Ford and his 40-hour, 5-day work week in many industries. It's not necessary. We can get the same amount of work done in 4 days and 30 or 32 hours that we're doing in 5 days and 40 hours, and you're giving your people a day to deal with personal matters or just relax or unwind from the mental and or physical issues that some work provides.
I'm really looking forward to the results of that study too. And I think that burnout has become such a pandemic because it's one of those things, as you said before, it doesn't happen overnight. And it's so easy to miss the early warning signs because we all know that life happens and that there are periods of intense stress that we just have to deal with. I mean, we can try to avoid as many stresses as possible, but there's simply some of them which are outside of our control. For instance, every new parent knows that babies don't come with a convenient on-off switch, right? And there are lots of other occasions in our lives and businesses where we just have to roll with the punches and try to get through rough patches as best as we can. And something to keep in mind is that short-term stress is not a problem. Our body is designed to handle short-term stress and bounce back from it. Actually, mild stress of different kinds can often induce pathways in your body that improve your health and longevity. This sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. It's a concept called hormesis, and it makes total sense when you think about your brain as a thermostat that always tries to get you back to baseline. So when you encounter a mild stress, your body overcompensates by switching on repair mechanisms that help you bounce back and recover. But the stress that we are talking about today is not that beneficial kind of stress. Burnout happens when we are unable to switch back to relaxation after a stressful event and we become stuck in that chronic stress mode. And that's when things start to go pear-shaped because now your body is in this constant fight or flight mode and it does not get back into rest and repair. And for a lot of people, it's just so hard to tell when they have reached that stage because it's such a gradual process. And it's one of those things that's super obvious in hindsight, but it's often not obvious while you're in the middle of that. So when you look back, you feel like, duh, why didn't I see it? But when you're in the middle of it, you're just going through the motions and you're just trying to survive. So what are some of the most common burnout symptoms that people experience when they start working with you, and how aware are they of the severity of their situation?
A lot of people in the teams that I work with, they have a brief understanding of burnout, and they sense that they are actually burning out. I've had several conversations over the last few weeks with organizations from their HR leadership, and they're saying, my team's burned out. Based on what you've told me, they're burned out. What can we do about it? And the signs are fatigue, increased absenteeism. People are sick more, which is problematic, especially when you have a pandemic going around. Because when you're not feeling well and you're not getting enough rest, then your immune system gets impacted. So you actually have less immunity to things. So the likelihood of you contracting COVID-19, for example, increases if you're fatigued, because your body is so busy trying to deal with the stress that you're not releasing that your immune system suffers from that. So, common signs, I've said before, poor sleep. You start making mistakes at work or your forgetfulness. Maybe you're irritable. Your relationships are suffering a little bit. Maybe there's a lack of motivation. You're not motivated to do anything. And I'm not talking just about work. I'm talking about things in life you normally like to do, whether it's going out for hikes or going for a bike ride, or maybe you have a weekly team meet, or not a team meeting, but a gathering of friends and colleagues that you meet. Maybe you quit going to that. Maybe you have tickets to a sporting event and then you just don't bother going to, or you cancel out on a concert, or little things that are normally beneficial, enjoyable things we like to do. When you're stressed and burned out, you start cutting those things out of your life, which is the worst thing you can do, because you're not giving yourself a way to unwind and detox from the stress. So that stress just stays with you. And it's like you said, it's like a hamster wheel or a treadmill. It just keeps on going. And that's when you can get in big trouble, because if you don't relieve the stress, it gets prolonged and that turns into burnout. And then you start having mental or physical issues. And as in my case, it nearly killed me, and that's not good. I don't want that for people. I want people to take better care of themselves, and there's ways to stop the burnout a lot sooner than a lot of people think. The deeper work, though, is figuring out why you burned out in the first place. What were your habits, your actions, your thoughts, your beliefs that created the scenarios for you to find yourself in a burned out state? That's a lot deeper work. And sometimes that can be very deep work. That can go back to your programming, your beliefs, your upbringing. Why is this important for you, entrepreneur, type A personality, to have this business be so successful at whatever cost? Why? Why is that important? What are you trying to accomplish? Why is that important to you?
Mm.
Why is it worth sacrificing your well-being to do this? Can you still have the success? Of course, it could be drawn out. It might take several years and not be that overnight success thing that we always hear about. But the majority of those overnight successes were decades in the making. We don't see that. That doesn't get posted on Instagram, other than maybe Gary Vaynerchuk. He's pretty transparent about the work that he's done over his career. So there's plenty of evidence there for that. But for many people, it's like, yeah, I'm successful, I did this. But unless they share their backstory and how long it took them to get there, people just think, oh, they're lucky. They had something handed to them. Not typically. They've worked very, very hard, but they've also worked very smart. And of course, sometimes it's a trial by fire, but figure out a way to get to the results you want to get to without killing yourself in the process.
That sounds like a good piece of advice. Now, I'd like to dive a little deeper into your best tips for preventing burnout in the first place. So, what systems have you put into place that help you stay calm and relaxed, even when life throws you a curveball?
For me, I know I keep going back to sleep. Sleep is
Yeah.
critical. The condo building I live in, there's a couple that I know, and they have both very stressful jobs. One's in law enforcement, and the other one, I forget what role that she's in, but very stressful jobs. But when you see them, you wouldn't know it. You'd be like, whoa, I didn't know that they were in that type of role, because they're the most happy-go-lucky people in this building, other than the old Scottish couple that I know that lives in this building. They're more happy-go-lucky than anybody that I've encountered. But this couple, I ran into them not too long ago, and they'd come back from the mall that's not too far from us, and they were carrying two boxes, and each box had a pillow in it, and each pillow cost $250 each. So they had $500 in two pillows. I think the majority of us probably haven't spent $500 in our entire lives on pillows, much less two of them. So I asked them, okay, I'm curious, what's in the pillows? Is there gold bars in there? Do you have cryptocurrency? What's in them? And they explain, the the pillows and all that, and they said they get the most amazing sleep with these pillows. I didn't ask them what kind of mattress they had because I thought that would be a little too personal, but I knew that, okay, if they're dropping $500 on two pillows, I'm guessing they spent some money on their mattress too and their bedding. But they get good sleep. They get amazing sleep. They're also active. They've become more active. They weren't initially, but I've noticed over the last couple of years, especially during this pandemic, they made it a focal point to improve their physical health as well, which of course has a ripple effect in improving your mental health. So they're doing things like that. They're getting amazing sleep. So that helps. The activity thing is important. And it is a big concern of mine during this pandemic where so many of us have been working remotely that we're not as active as we were before. And especially in the early days when there was lockdowns and we were told, please don't leave your house unless you have to, we weren't moving as much. So that takes a toll. And then there's stress eating and whatnot. So, getting some activity in is important. If you haven't, then work with your healthcare provider so you don't injure yourself, because you don't want to end up in the hospital because you tore something because you don't know how to properly do some exercises. Work with people that can help you with that. A third thing is nutrition, which is, a lot of people say, of course, that's important. But for me, last year I had a food intolerance test done on me, and they tested over 250 types of foods to see what my level of tolerance or intolerance was. And I was surprised to see as many foods on what I call the red page that I have some intolerance to. One of them is eggs, which I find extremely comical because my business logo is an egg. It's breakfast leadership. Okay, eggs. It's kind of a thing. So I have an intolerance to them. And so what I've done is those foods that were in the red zone, a lot of them I never ate anyway, so it wasn't a big deal. But there was a lot that I did, so I thought, okay, let's start phasing these things out of my diet and start phasing in the foods that were on the green page. And what I found was, I started feeling better. I didn't have the inflammation, and that's typically for me anyway. What those intolerances are is inflammation, some digestive issues, which of course your digestive system is really active at night. So that's why you hear about acid reflux and all of those things. So if you're eating foods that are right for you, I mean, literally that are best for you, then your digestive system is working on foods that are normal and they can work through your system without a lot of extra effort, which means you cut down on the stomach acid, you cut down on the acid reflux, you cut down on a lot of other things. But again, work with your medical provider if you're interested in getting tested, because for me it was great because it cut down on inflammation. I felt better, I sleep better, and that just has a ripple effect. So, and then finally, the biggest one, and even though I hammer on sleep saying this is critical, you have to do things in life you enjoy doing. Yes, you're an entrepreneur. You're the solo owner. You're the chief cook and bottle washer of your business. You might be the only employee. You're putting in 14, 16-hour days trying to build this thing up. Scale it back a little bit, just a little. I'm not telling you to do 8 hours. I mean, that's like telling somebody to quit breathing. It's just not going to happen. I know entrepreneurs. I'm one. I get it. We're driven. We want this thing to be successful. But you need to schedule things in life that you enjoy doing that's outside of work. It could be reading, it could be filling out crossword puzzles, or going for a bike ride, or hiking, or swimming, or golfing, or going on trips, or going to events, or simply having coffee or tea with one of your friends every couple of weeks for a half an hour, an hour. That's self-care. That's doing things in life that are good for you that you enjoy doing. You need to schedule those things. Don't try to just squeeze them in betweens. Literally schedule them. You schedule all your other meetings. We scheduled this interview. Schedule those me time or self-care times. And when you do that, it makes a big difference. And I want to share real quick. I call it a life hack, but a calendar hack, basically. And you can do this whether you use a digital calendar or the one on your phone or a paper calendar. Color code your calendar. Now, if you're colorblind, I know that was a cruel joke. So use symbols instead of colors, because if you're colorblind, you're not going to see them. But use symbols to classify the type of events or meetings you have on your schedule. So Meetings are one color, phone calls are another. Your me time should be your favorite color or your favorite symbol. The reason why I say that is your brain is naturally triggered to see your favorite symbol or your favorite color before you see anything else. It happens that naturally. So the reason why you want to have your calendar color coded or symbol color or covered to your favorite symbol or color is you can squint at your calendar, not read the text, but just squint. And that way you can look at your calendar and say, okay, do I see enough of my favorite color or my favorite symbol? If you don't, then you have opportunities to adjust that. You need to schedule things that are beneficial for you in your calendar every week. And when you do that, guess what? You feel better. You're relaxed. You unwind from the stress of work. Then when you are working, guess what? You get clarity. Ideas come up. You start getting more efficient at what you do. So instead of something that used to take you 3 hours, now you're getting it done in an hour and a half because you've learned some ways to automate or cut out some things that really weren't necessary. You start getting creative and your curiosity comes up. And next thing you know, you start getting some results that you've been working so hard to find. They start coming and they feel like, wow, this is coming easy. Yeah, it's easy now because you've put in the smart work beforehand. So those are the signs and things that you can do to give yourself a fighting chance to kind of keep stress manageable. And if you don't have prolonged stress, you won't burn out.
Great tips. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, the one thing that I've noticed is that mindset plays such a crucial role, both in the development of burnout as well as in the healing from it. So, what are your thoughts on the importance of mindset in that setting? And what are maybe one or two of the most important mindset shifts that have helped your clients in the past?
Mine, it's such an important thing. We beat ourselves up. If we don't land that client, we're upset. And we said, we screwed up. We didn't do this. It just may not be the right match. I use this analogy, if you're looking for a job, everybody gets disappointed if they don't get the job that they interviewed for. You got to get back into the ring. You're not going to win them all, but eventually you're going to win that battle or accomplish that task or win that job or get that client. But you have to be in the game. And the best way to do it is, look for opportunities for growth. And we are so hard on ourselves. We beat ourselves up. And, when I first started doing the post, year of worst case scenarios work, that's how I started. I'm like, what was I thinking? Why was I such an idiot for doing that? Why didn't I establish boundaries around when I worked and when I did? And then I realized that wasn't going to get me any better. Beating myself up is not going to do anything except make it worse for me. So I need to go back and start looking at things in a loving, caring way. You have to love yourself. You have to be proud of what you've accomplished. Launching a business is not easy. Being an entrepreneur is a big risk for many people. You're leaving the quote unquote safety net of working for somebody, which they can easily terminate you at a moment's notice, which many of us that are entrepreneurs have had that situation. So that's why we've decided, you know what, I'm going to be my own boss. And then the only person that's going to fire me is me. And I wouldn't recommend firing yourself unless you win the lottery or something. But ultimately, you're in better control as an entrepreneur. You can kind of dictate how your days go. But from a mindset, you have to go at it as, look, I am confident in the skills that I have that is going to do the things that I need to do for this business to be successful. I also know where I am not strong, and I need to either learn how to do those things better or hire or delegate to somebody that is really good at that. As entrepreneurs, we all do too much. We're all being our own bookkeeper, our own receptionist, our own scheduler. We're all these things. And in today's day and age, there's a lot of automation tools. There's a lot of virtual type of work that are really affordable. Yes, I know it's an outlay of money, but as Patrick Ewing, the former center for the New York Knicks, said, you got to spend money to make money. And he spent a lot of money, but he also made a lot of money. He was a professional basketball player. So But that's the same thing as an entrepreneur. You have to invest wisely in things that can make your business grow. And as entrepreneurs, a lot of times we are the ones that get in the way of our own success. And understanding that and going, okay, I need to eventually get to a place where only the things that I can work on, that's what I'm working on. The other stuff that somebody else can do, delegate that. Give it to somebody else, whether it's podcast editing or scheduling or information, on a website. If people are constantly asking you for a particular resource, put it on the website. It's right there. Then that way they can go grab it themselves. That delegates that effort to your prospective client. The more that you put out there for information for people to get, the better you're going to be. But again, the mindset is love yourself, take care of yourself, do everything you can to be successful, taking care of your mental and physical health to give you a fighting chance to be successful. And understand that things take time. How long? Hard to say. It really depends on what kind of business you're in and what you're doing. But remember, we've been in this 2-year pandemic that threw everything out the window as far as business practice is concerned. So the fact if your business is growing at all during a pandemic is remarkable, and congratulations for doing that. If it's not growing, you figure out why. What are some things you can do to make it successful? But again, go at it from a healthy, relaxed state. You'll see things clearer. If you're stressed out, you won't see anything except the bank account, and you're not happy what that number looks like. So mindset is so critical.
Yeah, you really have to put yourself first, without seeing that as something that is selfish. It's something that you just have to do because it's the foundation that you can build on. And for me, finding my way back was definitely a mix of different strategies that allowed me to bounce back. So exercise, for instance, was a big one for me that really helped me reduce my stress level. I tried meditating at that point in time, but I found that I just couldn't concentrate, which was super frustrating and stressed me out even more because I had reached that point where I couldn't use my mind to control my monkey mind anymore. I needed to focus on my body in order to shift that internal state so that I was able to focus again. So learning to leverage that mind-body connection to shift my internal state was a very important lesson for me in that situation. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners today?
I think, and I keep talking about sleep, but if you get good sleep, it will have a positive ripple effect in helping you deal with the stressors that you have. Uh, yes, it's stressful. There's a lot of people that are working a lot longer hours than they were before. Maybe your team or your organization is having difficulty finding people, especially small businesses. Even the big corporate giants are having difficulty finding people. Our small businesses are really struggling with it because employees, sometimes are taking roles that are have better benefits and higher compensation than your organization can pay. So it's frustrating. But ultimately, it boils down to just being patient, get good rest, eat the foods that are right for you, get some activity in, and do things in life you enjoy doing, even when you're fatigued and tired. Do something so you can escape from your mind from thinking about work all the time, and take in an event or an experience. Even if you're sitting out on your patio or balcony, or going to the beach or a park, just sitting and listening and taking in nature. For many of us, that is a nice reset button to get us grounded back into feeling better, and then we see things clearer once we do that. So you do those things, that's going to give you a fighting chance to keep burnout at bay.
Yeah, find your own reset button. I think that sums it up nicely. And last but not least, where can people find you online if they would like to connect or work with you?
Yeah, the best place to find me is at breakfastleadership.com. Up towards the top, there's a bunch of links to a variety of different resources. There's also a contact info on the main page. Just enter your name and email and brief message, and someone from our team will be more than happy to reach out to you. I'm on most of the social media channels as well. Just look up Breakfast Leadership or hashtag Breakfast Leadership. You should be able to find me on all the major platforms.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Michael, for sharing your tips and wisdom with us today. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Take care and talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Wired for Success podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please take a sec to rate and review my show or share it with a friend. That way you can support the show and help me reach and support other entrepreneurs like yourself as well. If you would like my help to figure out how you can go from overwhelmed and overworked hustler to empowered and confident leader, check out my website at www.wiredforsuccess.solutions and book a free 20-minute strategy session with me. Can't wait to help you get wired for success. Until next time, take care. Bye.